이번엔 나라 밖 소식입니다. 지구촌 최대 무슬림 국가인 인도네시아에서 기독교인 주지사가 신성모독으로 법정에 섰다고 합니다. 인도네시아에서 전해온 소식입니다.
On Tuesday, Jakarta Governor Basuki Purnama, also known as Ahok, was brought to the state court for the first day of his trial. He's accused of committing blasphemy against Islam because of statements he made several months ago. If he's found guilty, the Christian governor could face up to 5 years in prison. Ahok is the first ethnic Chinese governor of Jakarta and the first non-Muslim to serve in the office for more than half a century. He's running for re-election next year. Ahok suggested politicians misinterpret the Quran when they state that Muslims should not be governed by non-Muslims. The state prosecutor told the court that Ahok insulted Islam and desecrated the Quran by using one of its verses to mislead voters in order to increase his chances of winning. His trials was filled with a heavy police presence and disruptive traffic restrictions were in place around the courthouse. Hundreds of protesters rallied outside the court to demand that Ahok be jailed. Despite the chaos, Ahok insisted he never intended to offend any religious individual or groups when he made the comments last September.
I never intended to insult Muslims or insult the clergy. On that basis, I plead with the judges to consider my exception plea.
Ahok's supporters also show up outside the courthouse to defend the Christian leader's innocence. They believe radical Muslims in Jakarta are trying to harm Ahok's re-election chances.
He never wants to insult any other religion. He wouldn't tolerate any action against his country and his people.
Some fear Ahok's trial signals a rapid growing Islam militancy in the country of 250 million. Christian represents less than 10% of the Indonesian's population. According to the Indonesia's constitution, freedom of religion is well protected nationwide. However, militant Muslim groups often take violent and legal action against the Christians and churches. Ahok's lawyer asked the 5-judge panel to throw the case out. The judges adjourned the trial until December 20th.
Already, thousands of refugees have tried to escape the ISIS rampage across Iraq. It's a trickle that could become a flood. Behind me is one of the many refugee camps throughout northern Iraq. 20,000 people live in this one alone, with another 30,000 in the vicinity. But experts warn when the city of Mosul falls, it could represent the greatest refugee crisis in decades.
There's a lot of potential for this to be catastrophic on the human scale.
Matthew Nowry leads Samaritan's Purse in northern Iraq. He says the internally displaced persons, or IDPs, coming out of Mosul today are different from the refugees who fled ISIS in the summer of 2014.
The IDPs that are going to be coming out of Mosul have lived 2+ years under the control of ISIS. And so they've seen what I believe is the worst terrorism the world has ever seen.
Despite the danger, he sees the crisis as an opportunity for the church, especially with the young people.
These youth have been watching ISIS for the last 2 years, and they know what they're being taught by ISIS. And they're about to be displaced into the region, and they're going to be watching to see who receives them and who serves them. And so we have taken it upon ourselves as an organization, and we believe that Jesus commands us to give a glass of cold water to our enemy and to serve. And so we want to be there. We want to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ when these children and when these adults, whether it is cells of ISIS or not.
Nowry says what's needed most now is prayer.
The situation is incredibly complex, and I'd ask the church back in America, in the West, first and foremost to pray. We don't have all of the answers. We don't know how to remain completely secure. This is a dangerous calling. But I'd ask for prayers for the people themselves that are going to be displaced, that God would soften their hearts now, that they'd be receptive to the message that so many of Jesus' followers are going to be out in the desert here in Iraq trying to provide.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Northern Iraq.